One of the things I really wanted to dive back into and look at was the 5 overall freedoms that truly make up a truly wealthy life. And remembering that wealth isn't just a number in your bank account, it's the freedom to live life on your terms. So one of the things I felt was if I wasn't working on the businesses, I wasn't furthering the mission. And that put a lot of pressure on me. But one of the things I realized along the way was that actually being more intentional about setting up some free time was actually part of that mission as well. Man, this one bothers me so much. There's so many people out there that have done such a great job of building up, whether it's their wealth or having these long careers or, doing whatever it is they can to get to that retirement age or that freedom stage. And then their health is failing them. And I mean, how many people do you know that need like knee replacements, hip replacements? So they get to like retirement, they've done all this great job, they've built this great wealth, and they can't even enjoy their money. These are quick wins. Know who is in your community that is adding to your life. Know who's detracting from it. Set some boundaries around the ones that are negative. Join a community that is in line with something you're passionate about. Real wealth, it's about having the ability to choose the life that you want to have. So take back control. Stop being a bystander. Start taking action in your own life. Be intentional about it.
Let's bring in Grant White, portfolio manager,
an investment advisor at IA Private Wealth.
Welcome to the Finding Your Wealth podcast. The whole thing is absolutely a bit of a tire fire, in my opinion. I don't like drama, and this stock is surrounded by drama.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me today and listening in on the latest episode of the Finding Your Wealth podcast. We've had some amazing guests along the way here, and I'm so grateful for the time I've been able to spend with these people and hearing their stories, hearing their experience, and sharing this sharing their message, I should say, about what finding your wealth means to them, what wealth truly means to them, and there has been some common themes, but one of the things that has come out in the last few episodes, whether it was talking to Margot Miller, Greg Hansen, Nick Logan, you name it. There's been a number of our guests that have kind of shared like what defines freedom. Dr. Jason Brooks, of course, talked about a lot of constraints as well. But like one of the things I really wanted to dive back into and look at was the 5 freedoms the 5 overall freedoms that truly make up a truly wealthy life. And so that's what today's episode is all about, looking at those 5 freedoms and remembering that, wealth isn't just a number in your bank account. It's the freedom to live life on your terms. Today, I want to break down those 5 freedoms that real wealth gives you and how you can start moving towards them starting today. And I'll also share stories about what I'm doing to get into that as well. So thanks again for joining us today. And I hope you enjoy this episode. I know you will. I know there's going to be some good takeaways from this. So let's start by talking about the 5 freedoms. So there's 5 overall freedoms, and Margot did such a great job in one of our previous episodes of identifying them. But I'm going to go through them one by one, but let's just list them off as they are. So financial freedoms 1. I mean, I think people coming into this podcast know that financial freedom is going to be one of the main things that we talk about. So finding your wealth, financial freedom, removing the constraints of finances to achieve freedom. Time freedom, mega important as well. The ability to control how you spend your time. Social freedom, the freedom to choose who you spend your time with and the ability to build meaningful connections. Health freedom, this is one that bothers me so much today because I see so many people getting bogged down in their health. The ability to live your life without your health being a constraint. We all see this. So many of, especially the baby boomer generation now as they're aging, they're getting to the point where they've got so many of these other freedoms, but the health is letting them down. The mobility is letting them down. They can't live that life that they ultimately chose they wanted to. And the last one being knowledge freedom. And this is a particularly interesting one for me, and I love it. The freedom to learn, grow, and think for yourself. The freedom, I like to also think about this one like mastery over certain subjects that make you feel more free, whether that's more free in your current life because you've gained mastery over your profession, or you name it, just the freedom to choose and the freedom to know more about your situation. And that gives you like peace of mind. So let's get into these a little bit more. So financial freedom, let's start there because that is obviously one of the main reasons a lot of people are probably listening into this, and a lot of reasons, people engage our wealth management business in the first place. But the ability to make choices about being without money being the limiting factor. This is such a huge thing. I mean, like, it starts from, like, paying your bills like on a consistent basis. That it gets to that point. I remember being like in high school and thinking that, man, you know what freedom's going to be? It's going to be when I can just fill up my gas tank and not have to think about how much I'm putting in. Like, because I remember, probably lots of people remember this, but in high school you put in like $10 or $20 or whatever, and it gets you to the next gas station, basically. But I remember thinking that, yeah, freedom would be being able to fill your gas tank completely and not worrying about it. And then, of course, it evolves into, like, wanting to be able to expand lifestyle, like enjoy more experiences, like traveling without having to budget as much or think about how much this trip is going to cost, and so on. One of the stories that this really reminds me of is one of my clients who is a high-earning doctor. She does very well. She's done very well for herself for a long time. But she had this real financial constraint that she couldn't get around. She couldn't feel comfortable spending her money. And she really did want to travel. That's a pretty common goal, but she really did want to travel, but she couldn't wrap her head around it. And part of the reason was because she didn't feel safe. She had this financial constraint that was created long before she ever had money, which it was created by her experience as a child with money and how her parents spent money. And, although her parents had very good jobs, were professionals, they weren't very good at building that safety net position. And so the family constantly felt strapped for money. And because of that, she developed this constraint on her own as well about spending her own money, even though she had lots of money set aside and her income justified being able to go on trips that she wanted to do. She had a really tough time. Spending the money. She just didn't feel safe. And so, one of the things that we did from that perspective was, just made sure she had an adequate safety net account, or you could call it a freedom account if you want to, but just having an adequate amount of money set aside so that her mind was free to spend the money. So let's say that amount was $40,000. She needed to have $40,000 set aside in a low earning but guaranteed high interest savings account. She needed that. She needed to be able to see it as well. Like, it couldn't be in an investment account. It had to be like something that she could look at online in her bank account, basically on a regular basis. And even though she could look at her investment accounts online, it wasn't good enough. She had to have somewhat control over that. And but once we did that, like, what she would do is, like, every month she'd add on to that $40,000, and anything above that $40,000 she felt comfortable to spend. And so since we were able to do that, it really put her mind at ease, and she felt a lot comfortable. She felt that financial freedom. So, financial freedom isn't just about the amount of money. Sometimes it's how you allocate that money, how it's saved. But financial freedom, of course, it's so important. So whether or not that's the income level, the savings level, the freedom account you have set aside, so important. Time freedom is, I think the big thing with time freedom is that's everything. Like, the ability to spend your time the way you want to, but, like, it's really hard at the same time. So, it could come from, like, delegating your work to teammates or automating your finances, like, so you don't have to worry about them as much, or structuring your life so you have space for family, your passions, your rest. Like, I recently heard that actually, in order to keep yourself from going insane, you need to give yourself about 2 to 2.5 hours of time per day for yourself to do on your own things, that freedom. And I don't know, any parent must know that that's not happening on a consistent basis. So all the parents are going insane, including myself. But time freedom is something that you need to be so intentional about. And I think that this is the hardest one from many respects. If you're not intentional, it definitely just does not happen, because you get so caught up in everything else, whether it's your work, whether it's your kids, whether it's, you name it. This one you have to be intentional about. And this reminds me a lot about my conversation with Greg Hansen about how intentional he was about his dreams and accomplishing his goals, but also his family, and especially spending his time with his wife, and making sure that their relationship was good and was a priority as well. And again, I think this is one that gets away from a lot of us. It's certainly gotten away from me. I haven't been the best at being intentional about my time freedom over the years. And part of that's come from, like, starting businesses. I mean, that's a hugely time demanding thing, and And so you quickly get, again, it's easy to get sucked up in the vortex of what all of the demands are on your time. Um, One of the things I realized throughout the way, and I didn't do this on my own, I realized it through conversations with, good friends of mine, and also with professionals, and Dr. Jason Brooks. I'll give you a plug, because I, especially in building the businesses, one of the things I felt was, if I wasn't working on the businesses, I wasn't furthering the mission. I wasn't pushing towards my very ambitious goals and the things I really want to do and the impacts I wanted to have. And that put a lot of pressure on me. But one of the things I realized along the way was that actually being more intentional about setting up some free time for myself was actually part of that mission as well. And that's what worked for me, is I needed to understand that even if you take a day away from the work or whatever it is you're doing, um, that's not taking away from actually what your ultimate ambitions are. It's not you being lazy. It's actually helping to propel that mission along. Um, I was just texting a friend about this as well recently, because, like, there's lots of places in the world outside of North America where it's so commonplace to just sit at a cafe, not having a phone in your hand, and just sit there and kind of watch what's going on, and just look around, enjoy nature, enjoy the breeze, the smells, whatever it is. It's so, I don't think that's common enough here in North America. I know it certainly wasn't common enough for me. And again, it's sometimes about being intentional and giving yourself permission to enjoy that time. So one of the things that I have recently decided, I've been talking about doing it for a long time, but I've recently decided to do, was to take at least one Friday a quarter. I'm starting with one Friday every quarter, and I'm just going to take it off and do something for myself. And that might be, I go for a paddle, I get out on the water and I paddleboard down like the river, or go out to the lake even, or something like that. Might be just going to a movie, maybe even by myself. The new Superman movie's coming out, so I'm pretty pumped about that. So I'm probably going to do that. But just taking a day for yourself, for your own, your own mental health, but also just like recharging the batteries. Because again, even when I was on vacation a lot of the time, I should say, it didn't necessarily recharge the batteries. Because like when I'm on vacation now, I've got my two young kids. I mean, my wife is there obviously too, but like, you got our two young kids, and it's like full on. I mean, like, again, anybody with young kids, like ours are 2 and 4 now, that it's kind of just living in a different place. And the joke is always like, yeah, you're just living somewhere else and you can't find the coffee filters. So giving yourself that day, even for me, I think even just one day a quarter is enough. But like whatever that happens to be, to give yourself that break to just recalibrate, recharge the batteries. But time freedom, like I will say, one of the best things I've done since being, a father and having kids, is making sure that I'm very present around the time I get with them. Because, I think about during the week, I maybe get 2 to 3 hours a day with them, because, by the time I leave the office, I usually leave here around 5 o'clock, get home. They're only up for a couple hours after that, basically. And like we go from having dinner, we go outside and play, into bedtime routines. So you don't get a ton of time. I make sure that as much as I can, the phone is not on, it's not in my hand. Definitely not on my laptop. And I pick up all that stuff afterwards. Like I pick up my laptop as soon as they go to bed, and after done having dinner with Sam, like, that's when I can get back on it. But that to me is part of my freedom, is making sure that I'm present for them. Social freedom is, I think, so interesting as well. And again, it's such a difficult thing for a lot of people. I mean, really having the ability to choose who you spend your time with, and the ability to build meaningful connections. Like I talked about, like the freedom of spending time with my kids. And that's certainly part of my social freedom. Nurturing community really lifts you up. I mean, having that community of like-minded people around you, the people that are positive impacts in your life. But one of the things I also would bring up is setting boundaries around the negative influences in your life. And I think that is equally as important as it is in setting up that positive community. Because, we all have grown and had these relationships where there's like energy sucking vortexes that, people take away those toxic relationships. And they don't have to be big, traumatic, blow up relationships, but it could just be people that frankly just aren't contributing to the person that you want to be, and the energy that you want to have. So I think like, again, like Margot was such a great, being that she's like a global community builder. She had such great insights on this. Some of the things I took from that conversation, belonging is security, having people who you can lean on in good times and bad creates a sense of safety that money cannot buy. Using connection as a resource. So when you're part of a strong community, you don't have to solve every problem on your own. You've got this network of open doors around you and people that you can rely on. That shared knowledge is also freedom. Intentional relationships, challenging yourself to think about whether or not social circles truly lift you up or they drain you. I mean, social freedom means being able to being free to choose the people who make your life better, making sure that you're the best version of who you want to be, and then ultimately setting those boundaries around people that don't do that. And then ultimately, community can multiply your wealth. So believing that your time, ideas, and efforts are amplified when you're part of something bigger than yourself, whether that's, again, it could be family, could be a local network, or could be a global community, whatever it is, that's important to you. And actually, this actually became so evident to me when I was invited to join a group called the Rebel Dads recently, which is it's a great group. It's like quite literally, it is a bunch of dads, but it's also a bunch of entrepreneurs, and it was started by a gentleman by the name of Derek Notman. So Derek started this during the pandemic because he realized that there's two things that are major factors in his life, major components of his life that can be very lonely. One being an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur and a leader can be a very lonely thing. And two, being a parent. In his case, a father. In my case, the same. But being a parent can be very, very lonely. You don't necessarily know who to rely on, and especially for those parents that maybe don't have, especially their parents around anymore, or never around. Perhaps they don't have that like network of community around parenting, and so Derek started this group called the Rebel Dads. I'm lucky enough to be invited into this group because it's only been a few months, but I've already found the group invaluable. And I was chatting with somebody else who's in the group and who just mentioned that it's been a life-changing experience for him being a part of this group because just the ability to talk to other people that are similar or in similar social circles or in similar social categories even, but just having that community around him so that he felt better about everything that he was doing just by having that. You share the bad stories, you share the good stories, you can seek advice. And so that social freedom is so important. From a personal side of things, I think there's so much social pressure out there to do things a certain way, to be going out and putting yourself out there, and you got to be seen. And if you're not doing those things, you're not acting enough. And again, I think I feel that pressure just because I'm in a world and in a role, being a leader of a few businesses and growing number of businesses that, where I have to be out there and I have to be constantly like in the scene a little bit, right? Especially being the face of the brand. So those are social pressures that and that doesn't just come from the business side. Actually, that's the part I do enjoy. It's the work, but it's the part I enjoy. The other side of it though is comes from the friends. And I found this especially when I had kids was, there's other things that just become priority, and that free time when you would spend time with friends in the evenings or the weekends, I mean, that took a bit of a back seat for me, especially because I chose my priorities of spending time with my kids over spending time with friends. And I don't regret that decision at all. I mean, that's what I want to do. And I think that's so important. But there's definitely still there's less and less, but I mean, as people get older, but I think there's definitely those pressures to be out there. And that again, removes some freedom for us. But setting boundaries around again, it could be toxic or could just be could be somebody that's negative and a negative influence to your ultimate goals. Having those boundaries and I can again speak from experience from old friendships that maybe weren't adding as much to my positive trajectory. I'm saying that very nicely, and making the choice to spend less time with those people, not cut them out of my life per se, but spending less time with those people because either maybe there was resentment towards what I wanted to do, and my ambitions, or maybe there was resentment because of not spending enough time with them and they had more time or something like that. They didn't have kids or something. Um, I think like just again setting boundaries about that and putting them into place, and also feeling comfortable with that is a big part of that social freedom. At least it was for me. Health freedom, man, this one bothers me so much, because it bothers me because there's so many people out there in Canada that have done such a great job of building up whether it's their wealth or having these long careers, or doing whatever it is they can to get to that retirement age or that freedom stage, and then their health is failing them. And I mean, I'm looking at the baby boomer generation, especially right now. How many people do you know that need like knee replacements, hip replacements, whatever it happens to be, and like there's their mobility issues are holding them back. So they get to like retirement, they've done all this great job, they built this great wealth, and they can't even enjoy their money.
Yeah.
That bothers me so much, because I think like as a society we've done a disservice to a lot of people. There was this promise that was given to people, and I think to some degree like people are misled. Now, hey, we live in a wonderful country where people have the choice, and have always had that choice, as to how they want to live. But I think that there's been some misleading guidance around certain aspects of health that are now preventing people from living like their life. And I mean, I see that in my own family, and I also see that there's challenges in our healthcare system, like where it's completely strapped, and people are not getting the care they need in a timely manner. Like the pandemic certainly strained it, but this was a problem that was existing beforehand. And so we need to, like, without getting too political, we need to take a good look at the framework of how we do healthcare in this country and what that looks like, so that we can actually give people that freedom. Because like right now, there's so many people that have the ability to be free from every other aspect, but the health is getting in the way. There's always these tragic stories too, where you hear about these people getting to that retirement age, and within a few years of retirement, they become sick. Maybe it's terminally ill, which is ultimately just devastating. But I think that this needs to be kept in mind. And the problem with this one, like some of these you can fix, like later on. Financial freedom is another one where it's harder to do later. The earlier you start, obviously, the better it gets and the easier it is. Time freedom, that's something that you can probably change. Well, I know you can change it, as long as you're intentional wherever you are, whatever stage you're at. Social freedom, again, probably something you can work on that can make immediate steps. Health freedom, though, it's not like you can snap your fingers and be like, hey, I'm going to get healthy tomorrow. I'm going to like improve my mobility. And if you haven't read any of like Dr. Peter Attia's books or listened to his podcasts, some of his podcasts are a bit, he's so technical sometimes, but actually I was just listening to him on Simon Sinek's podcast a few weeks ago. Simon Sinek? No, sorry. Diary of a CEO. Yeah, he was on Diary of a CEO a few months ago. Fantastic episode. And I that's with Bartlett. That's Bartlett's CEO, or Bartlett's podcast, I should say. Anyway, it was fantastic listen. But the point being is that like if you don't start that now, the earlier you start, the better, certainly. But you kind of need to start as soon as possible, because like there is a point where you can't get it back fast enough, basically. So if you wait till your 50s to try to get healthy, for example, it's not that that's a waste of time. Like you should start as soon as you can, but your ability to get back to like a health level is diminished. And again, I'm not the expert on that, but I do read and listen to a lot of the experts about that type of thing, because I think that's one of the things that we all need to take more note in. It's something I've taken way more seriously, for myself. I mean, I a couple of years ago, got into, doing certain like challenges and races, like climbing mountains and even doing marathons. And, this year coming up, like I've got some plans to do some ultra marathons, hill climbs, things like that, paddleboarding challenges, like, looking to do some mega long paddleboard trips, and I'm really looking forward to all that stuff. But those are things that like helped me to get my fitness level kind of better, anyway. It's something I still am working on, but I think it's something you work on every single day kind of thing. And you just have to be intentional about it. But, at 40 years old, like I am, my hope is to have a health level that's somewhere in my lower 30s, basically, and try to maintain that and slow down that physical aging process. Not again from a looks perspective, but more about like mobility and having the ability to. I want to be in my 90s and be able to paddleboard and do like hikes and climb hills and mountains with my grandkids and certainly with my kids at that point. So. Running on the beach, that type of stuff. So that journey starts today for me, but it starts for everybody. Like the worst thing I can think of, and it's such a tragedy, people living in their early retirement years, that freedom years, and they can't move, they can't travel because like they can't walk, and I just think it's such a travesty. Knowledge freedom is the fifth one that I wanted to chat about. We haven't dove too deep into this one, but I think like, again, knowledge gives you power, knowledge gives you freedom. And to me, this is about mastery as well. So mastery over your profession. When you're at the top of your game, like, and that doesn't mean necessarily being the best dentist in the country, the best dentist in the world, or whatever it is that you do. But it does mean, like, I think being at a level where you feel good and that gives you freedom and confidence in what you're doing. So having that knowledge freedom, whether that could be about even financial literacy, just giving yourself a bit of understanding about how money works so that you can understand it and feel a little bit better about what you're doing. But it could be about your profession. It could be about your passions, your interests. Like a lot of people are picking up things like, triathletes. I see this all the time. Like some mega triathletes, like this isn't their day job, but they are so into it, and they find freedom in understanding and working on their performance, and they read a lot and gain more knowledge about like nutrition and fitness. But it could be anything. It could be, knowledge around something you're super passionate about. It could be Formula One racing, could be following the Jets along here in Winnipeg. It could be anything like that. Could be philanthropic work, whatever it is. The more knowledge you gain about that, I think the more free you're going to feel in that. And that's going to make you feel like your purpose, which ultimately contributes to your freedom. Without purpose, I guarantee you're not going to feel your ultimate true freedom. Curiosity, though, we have a part of our DNA here at Endeavour is always be curious. Always, always, always be curious. And that's something I hope to carry for the rest of my life, is being curious to learn new things. One of the things I see a lot of as people age is they stop being curious about how to do things or how to improve things or just new ideas. And I know that's probably a natural progression. To me, I never want to stop being curious. And that's something I'm going to be desperately trying hard to never let go of. Here's one that I think people don't think of, though, is having trust in your team as well. Like, it's great to want to learn more. And I'll just use finance as the example here. I think it's great to want to learn. I encourage this, whether it's people that we work with, like clients of Endeavour here. If you want to learn more about finances and investing, that's great. If you want to learn about how retirement income works and how you can protect yourself, that's great. If you want to read all the books, that's great. We'll give them to you. But one of the things I think you do need to be mindful of is, unless you're going to devote the time to become a master of whatever that is, you also need to feel comfortable in trusting in a team that can help you along the way, that can guide you and do the things for you, because you can't become a master of all. I can't be like, for me, this was one of my biggest lessons actually in starting my business up, is I had such, I don't know if it was imposter syndrome, but I had such like anxiety over like having to know everything that you needed to know to be a great advisor, to help people out in achieving their goals and removing the constraints that get in the way of their freedom. And one of the things I learned along the way is that, and thankfully I came across this pretty quick, was that you don't need to know everything. In fact, it's better not to know everything. It's better to have probably a general knowledge of how it works so you can feel comfortable with it, and you can make a decision about who is a good team member to help you along the way. That was my great learning in all of this. So having trust in your team is also a huge thing, because I do see a lot with people that I come across where their little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Their little bit of knowledge that they have actually prevents them from achieving more and feeling more free, because sometimes it paralyzes them, and sometimes it just gets them in the way where they have to feel control. They have to understand everything before they can make a decision. In reality, all you really need to do is trust your team that you're working with. And if you don't trust them, that's one thing. I mean, like trust could be something that's really hard for you. That comes from a lot of things, comes from experience. But if you can trust your team, you're going to go a lot further. Um, yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the examples I'd actually give on this that just come to mind is, you know, knowledge is power. Knowledge and planning things out is certainly important. And like understanding what could happen and how you would handle that, what actions would you take if certain things come to pass, that is also freeing. And so I'll give you the example of starting up Endeavour Wealth, because there was a lot of planning going into it. I planned for probably at least a year ahead of time, and ran certain scenarios about, if this happens, we're going to do this. If this happens, we're going to do this. And it wasn't to the point of paralysis, because a lot of people do go down that rabbit hole where, you're planning so much that you're just like trying to cover off every single circumstance. For me, it was about understanding, if we went through a financial crisis, because I started my career in the financial crisis, and I saw what that did to a lot of people's livelihoods, their businesses. But I wanted to know, if we went through a financial crisis in our first year of operation, what did that mean? What would we do to survive and ultimately to thrive out of that? And I ran up scenarios, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. Now, thankfully, the financial crisis didn't happen. When we started the company in 2019, it didn't happen. But I knew exactly what we would do, and that was helpful, because a few years later, when the pandemic hit, actually about, I guess, a year later when the pandemic hit, I knew exactly what to do. Now, the pandemic markets didn't end up being as bad as what they could have been. They were bad for a bit, though, and those shockwaves certainly could have been paralyzing for a lot of people. But for me, I knew exactly what we were going to do. I just went back to the playbook that we drew up, and actually, my goal going out of that was not just to survive, but I've looked at that as a moment where, we want to be 40 times bigger than what we are, Dave. Within 10 years of that event, I wanted to be 40x bigger than what we were. And because that's what the great businesses of the world have done. Like, you look at the iconic brands of like Apple or Microsoft or Disney, you name it, pretty much all the iconic companies that I idolize anyway. They had a moment like that where they could have battened down the hatches, or they could have thrown gasoline on the fire and really accelerated through those types of events. And I believe we've done that personally, but that came through planning, and that gave me freedom in those moments, because things change, and it's not like, I don't want to just feel free today. I want to feel free all the time into the future. So, yeah. So I thought about this some more, and one of the things I wanted to share was, what freedom do I value most today? Because I think it's really hard to get all five all at once. I mean, that's something that you again, that's true freedom that we're striving towards. And again, I don't have all five right now. Certainly don't have them all. But one of the things that I have focused in on really hard, and I talked about this a little bit, was that time freedom, because that's the one that I have a little bit more control of today. The one that doesn't necessarily take the time to build it, whether that be financial freedom, or, even knowledge freedom, but financial freedom, or that's, health freedom. I focused in on my time freedom more recently. And I think having kids helped to put this really in perspective, because you think you don't have any time before kids, then you have one kid, and then you think you don't have any time, and then you have another kid, and then you really realize man, you had a ton of time when you had one kid, and you had a ton of time when you had no kids. and so now that I have two kids, it's something I need to be more intentional about, and I have been more intentional about. I kind of think it's interesting when I talk to lots of entrepreneurs, and not, hey, kids isn't for everybody. I mean, I think one of the things you realize when you have kids is that you also understand why people don't have kids sometimes, because it definitely takes away from the things that, the things that are maybe more important to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you want to focus in on the things you're ambitious about, or the lifestyle you have without kids, hey, I'm not here to say that's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea for you. I mean, if that's what you want. For me, I always want to have kids. I love being a dad. I love my girls and spending time with them. And I love their view on the world. And actually, how it's reintroducing me. It's kind of like seeing the world for the first time again. That awe and wonder that they have is amazing. So I absolutely love that. and I would never trade that for anything in the world. But it's also forced me to be more intentional about that time freedom, and knowing that I don't get, like, my weekends aren't my own anymore. They never, like, they're not. I mean, they're really for them, and that's time that I'm so willing to give them. But that intentional choice of booking time for myself, I would even say it in my days, like time blocking out so I can like be more effective has been really, really important to me. But time freedom is the one that I'm really focusing on right now. And it's really the hardest part of achieving it. And I admittedly am not there yet, but it's actually just setting aside the time to figure out what is going to help me to feel that time freedom, and actually doing it. So on my to-do list today is to book my Fridays. So I'm going to do that today. I think, like, as like we look to close this off, if you want to look at some quick wins in each one of these freedoms, let's take a quick peek at that. So financial freedom. If you want a quick win, these are things that you can move on in the next month. And what I would encourage you to do between, like, right away, choose one of these 5 that you want to work on. Just choose one of them. Choose whatever one it is that is most important to you today, but choose one of those and work on it. And start with taking some quick wins and working towards it. So financial freedom. The quick win you could do is looking at your financial situation and setting goals for where you want to be. Don't think necessarily that you have to think about that retirement goal yet, that financial freedom goal. That's the one that, like, thinking too long term almost trips us all up. So think about where you want to be 1 year from today. And be realistic about it. Think about where you want to be 1 year from today and take meaningful steps on it. So if you've got, like, for example, if debt is bogging you down, what steps can you take this month to start paying that down? Okay. Make some decisions on that. Start allocating some more of your discretionary income, maybe, or making sure that you've got yourself on a plan that's going to eliminate debt, so that in 1 year, it's either going to be gone or you're well on your way to feeling comfortable. And I guarantee if you do that, you'll have a weight lifted off your shoulders. It could be a savings goal. Start saving today. If you haven't been saving and you have, like, a goal that you want to achieve, start saving today. Set aside the money. Do it on an automatic basis. If it's in an investment account or even just a savings account, start automatically. Like, you can put it around when you get paid. So every paycheck, there's a certain amount that's going to come off. That's a baby step you can take. If you have to, start small. Just start something. That's the baby step. Time freedom. Quick win. Book some time for yourself. Just book some time, whether it's 1 day a month, whether it's 1 evening a month, like 1 evening a month for your relationship, go on a date night, 1 Friday a month, 1 Friday a quarter in my case, to take some personal time. Book that today. If time freedom is your goal, this is the one I'm doing. Book that time for you today. Social freedom. Again, I think a little bit harder to do, but here's the quick win. Know who is in your community, in your social network that is adding to your life. Know who's detracting from it. 2 things you can do. These are quick wins. Set some boundaries around the ones that are negative. Set some boundaries around that toxic element there. Again, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to cut them off from your life, but make sure that you're setting a personal boundary that works for you. But here's another one on the positive side. Go join a community. There's great, like, meetup groups. There's great clubs. Go join a meetup group or a club or something. Join a community that is in line with something you're passionate about. That's a quick win. Start spending more time with like-minded people. Health freedom. By far not an easy one. But if health is your biggest thing that you want to work on your freedom on, and again, the sooner you do this, the better, just start taking that baby step. Some of the best advice I got, though, on this was, if you're starting from 0, let's say, like 0 workouts a week, and you want to get up to 6 workouts a week, don't set your goal necessarily for 6 workouts a week. Be realistic about it. Maybe start by setting a goal of 3 workouts a week. Do something that is doable to start off with. Because if your goal is 6 and then you only do 5 or 4, you're going to feel like a failure. And that's going to keep that negative. It's going to compound on you. And that in most cases stops people. And eventually they stop again and they have to restart later on. Do something that you can build momentum off of. So if 3 is what you can commit to. And I talked about, like, this is actually a social media thing as well. If you want to start doing more social media just for marketing your business or whatever it is, and you want to do 6 posts a week, be realistic about it. Like, make sure maybe that you're starting with a realistic amount, because if you're starting from 0, going from 0 to 100 miles per hour is a hard thing to do. Be realistic. So if you're working on your health and you haven't been working out, set a goal that's realistic. Get out there for 3 times a week. Get your 10,000 steps a day, whatever it is. Commit to it though, and get an accountability coach on the health side. Get somebody, a friend even, that you're going to do it with, because they'll hold you accountable. And knowledge freedom. Okay, I love knowledge freedom again. If this is your main passion, this is the thing that you want to work on this month, go get a book. or go get a book, or go get a mentor. That's the quick win you can do on this one. All right. Anyway, I'm going to close this episode off because these are the things that I think that, again, like, are the ones that you can take meaningful steps towards today. Again, this is all about taking control. Real wealth, it's about having the ability to choose the life that you want to have. So take back control. Stop being like a bystander. Stop being a tourist. Stop being a what's the word when you sit in the stands? I can't think of the word right now. But anyway, stop being a guest. Start taking action in your own life, and just be intentional about it. So start making those choices. Like, again, that intentionality is right through. I mean, if you're not intentional about any one of these 5 freedoms, you're not going to get there. So be intentional about it. Setting some goals that are realistic. Go short term at first and build towards your long-term vision of what you want to be. But again, here's my challenge for you over the next month. Pick the freedom you're weakest in right now. Choose one and take one quick win. Start the quick wins. Wealth isn't dollars, it's freedom. So let's start making those choices today. Thanks so much for joining me today. As always, send me in your questions. Send in stuff that you want to talk about. If you would love to share your story about wealth and what it means to you, by all means, reach out. We'd love to have you on as well. So please reach out. Look forward to chatting more down the road, and I will look forward to sharing updates on my time freedom next month. So I'm gonna give you an update when we talk next. But anyway, thank you so much. Take care, and let's do this together. Let her rip.